In this video, we'll dive deep into 10 powerful lessons inspired by Machiavelli's timeless wisdom, uncovering how strategic silence can become your greatest weapon, the hidden costs of power, and the shocking choices you'll face on the path to winning. Get ready for a journey full of unexpected twists and hard truths. The noise trap. The city pulsed with an unrelenting rhythm. Notifications pinged, voices clashed in open-plan offices, and streets buzzed with the roar of engines and the hum of countless conversations. Amid this chaos was Alex, a mid-level marketing manager desperately clawing for recognition. Every waking hour was a frantic push for relevance, posting curated images on social media, crafting witty responses in meetings, and chasing fleeting validation in the form of likes, shares, and nods of approval. Yet, despite the noise Alex created, their voice was drowned in a sea of louder, more aggressive personalities. It was during one of these exhausting days, after yet another ignored suggestion at a meeting, that Alex found themselves at a dimly lit cafe on the edge of the financial district. Rain streaked the window panes as Alex scrolled mindlessly through their phone, fingers tapping and swiping with a numb precision. That's when they noticed it, a small, weathered envelope lying on the table. It hadn't been there moments ago. Curiosity piqued, Alex opened it, revealing a single card with elegant, embossed lettering, "In a world of noise, silence is the loudest sound." The message was unsigned, its simplicity haunting. Alex glanced around, searching for someone who might have left it, but the cafe's patrons seemed oblivious. An older man in a corner seat briefly locked eyes with Alex before returning to his book, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The words echoed in Alex's mind as they left the cafe. At first, it seemed cryptic, even absurd. Silence in this world. But as they trudged home under the gray drizzle, the phrase began to feel like a key, unlocking something Alex hadn't yet realized they needed. That night, lying awake, Alex couldn't escape the thought. For the first time, they wondered if they had been fighting the wrong battle all along. What if the secret to being heard wasn't shouting louder but listening more? What if silence could be the edge they had been searching for? The card's message didn't just intrigue Alex, it planted a seed of doubt, curiosity, and a hunger for something more. The silent mentor. The envelope's message continued to haunt Alex for days, its meaning as elusive as the identity of whoever had left it. Unable to shake the mystery, Alex returned to the cafe, sitting in the same spot and watching the door as if the stranger might walk in again. Hours passed, and just as Alex was about to give up, the older man from that day entered, his presence as unassuming as before. He carried a leather-bound notebook, its edges worn smooth, and ordered tea in a voice so quiet Alex strained to hear. The man glanced over, meeting Alex's eyes with an almost imperceptible nod, as if he had been expecting them. Summoning their courage, Alex approached. "Excuse me," they began awkwardly. "That card was at you." The man studied Alex for a long moment, before gesturing to the seat across from him. "Sit," he said simply. Over the next hour, Alex learned his name was Victor, a former diplomat turned enigmatic consultant, whose influence spanned industries and governments. Yet, his name rarely appeared in headlines, and few could even describe his voice. "The most powerful words," he explained, "are the ones you leave unspoken." Victor recounted stories of leaders who had wielded silence like a weapon: Napoleon, Roosevelt, even CEOs of major corporations. "They understood," he said, "that silence unnerves, disarms, and forces others to reveal themselves." Intrigued but skeptical, Alex pressed him for examples. Victor leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "During a critical negotiation, I once sat silently for 45 minutes. The other side, desperate to fill the void, offered concessions I hadn't even requested." "Words," he said, tapping the table for emphasis, "are often a liability." But as Victor spoke, his tone darkened. "There's a cost," he admitted. "Silence isolates. It creates distance between you and the world. My success, it came at the expense of trust, of relationships. People fear what they can't read, even those closest to you." His words landed heavily. For a moment, Alex saw beyond the composed exterior, a glimpse of loneliness etched into Victor's features. As the conversation ended, Victor handed Alex the weathered notebook he had carried. "Inside are lessons I've learned. But they're not instructions," he warned. "They're tools. How you use them will determine whether you rise or fall." Walking home, the notebook clutched tightly, Alex felt both exhilaration and unease. This was no ordinary mentorship. It was an invitation into a world of calculated power, and Alex wasn't sure they were ready for what lay ahead. The first taste of power. The notebook became Alex's constant companion, its pages filled with Victor's concise observations and cryptic aphorisms. "People will always talk. Let them. It's what they say in your absence that matters. Control the silence, and you control the room." Inspired and desperate for a change, Alex decided to test these principles during the next team meeting. For months, Alex's suggestions had been overshadowed by louder colleagues. This time, they approached the situation differently. Instead of scrambling for attention, Alex remained quiet, observing the flow of conversation. When a debate erupted about a high-stakes project, Alex seized the moment, waiting until the noise subsided. They spoke in measured tones, delivering their idea with clarity and precision. The room fell silent, not the dismissive silence Alex had feared, but a charged stillness that carried weight. For the first time, all eyes were on Alex. By the meeting's end, their suggestion was approved, and Alex left with a subtle yet profound sense of victory. It wasn't just about being heard, it was about being respected. Encouraged, Alex began applying these techniques elsewhere. In casual conversations, they let others dominate the dialogue, interjecting only when necessary. In conflicts, they maintained an impassive silence, forcing others to reveal their emotions while Alex remained composed. The results were intoxicating. A manager who had once dismissed Alex began seeking their input. A coworker confided secrets, mistaking Alex's silence for trustworthiness. It felt like stepping into a new realm of influence, one where words were currency and silence, the vault. But cracks began to form. At an office happy hour, Alex overheard two colleagues whispering. "Alex is different lately," one said. "It's unnerving." The comment stung more than Alex expected. Silence, as Victor had warned, created distance. What had once been camaraderie now felt like a game of chess, with every interaction calculated. The unintended consequences became clearer when Alex's silence was misinterpreted during a client pitch. A moment meant to project confidence was seen as aloofness, leading to confusion and missteps. For the first time, Alex wondered if they were losing something essential in the pursuit of power. Victor's words echoed in their mind, "Control the silence, but don't let it control you." It was a lesson Alex was only beginning to understand. The mirror cracks. Alex's newfound approach was yielding results beyond anything they had imagined. Promotions were whispered about in meetings. Higher-ups began to notice their poise, and colleagues started second-guessing themselves in Alex's presence. It was as if silence had turned them into a shadow that loomed larger than life, a presence impossible to ignore. But with power came a creeping unease. At first, it was subtle. Co-workers would pause mid-sentence, their eyes darting to Alex as if seeking approval. Invitations to after-work gatherings became sparse. In team discussions, jokes and camaraderie felt stilted. One afternoon, Alex overheard a conversation between two colleagues in the break room. "They don't say much anymore," one remarked. "It's like they're always calculating." The word struck harder than expected, leaving Alex questioning whether their silence was fostering respect or alienation. But before they could dwell on it, an unintended betrayal shattered what was left of their trust. It happened during a project Alex had spearheaded. A junior team member, Lisa, had taken Alex's previous silence during a meeting as approval to present an idea Alex had subtly hinted at. When the presentation was met with glowing praise, Lisa claimed full credit. "Didn't you approve this direction?" someone asked Alex later. They hesitated, unsure whether to confront Lisa or let it go. The silence that had once been their ally now felt like a trap. Speaking out risked seeming petty. Staying quiet risked losing their influence. When Alex finally addressed Lisa in private, she looked genuinely confused. "I thought you didn't care about credit," she said. The statement cut deeper than any accusation. Victor's warning came rushing back. "Silence is both a shield and a mirror. It will show you others, but it will also show them who they think you are." That evening, Alex stared at their reflection in the bathroom mirror, the weight of their choices pressing heavily. The silence that once felt empowering now seemed isolating. It didn't just obscure Alex's intentions, it distorted them. For the first time, Alex questioned whether silence was truly a tool for control, or a weapon they no longer knew how to wield. The art of alliances. Victor's next lesson came not in the form of cryptic sayings, but through a direct challenge. "Power is rarely held alone," he said, pouring tea in his minimalist apartment, the only sound the faint whistle of the kettle. "Even the strongest rulers relied on alliances. But remember, loyalty is a fragile thing." He flipped open his notebook, revealing a sketch of interconnected circles. "Every alliance is a calculation. People align because it benefits them. But silence," he added, tapping the page, "can tip the balance in your favor. It lets them fill the gaps with what they want to believe." The words lingered as Alex faced a critical moment at work. The company was launching a high-profile project, and management was scouting for a team leader. Alex knew they needed allies to strengthen their bid. Reluctantly, Alex approached Jordan, a talented but competitive peer, whose ambition often clashed with their own. Over coffee, Alex adopted Victor's advice, listening more than speaking, leaving questions unanswered, and letting silence punctuate key moments. Jordan, eager to make their mark on the project, agreed to an uneasy partnership. "We'll dominate this," Jordan said confidently, mistaking Alex's quiet demeanor for agreement. Initially, the alliance seemed productive. Together, they navigated the project's complexities, their combined efforts earning management's praise. But the partnership began to fracture when Alex's silence left Jordan questioning their intentions. During a crucial planning session, Jordan presented an idea without consulting Alex. When asked if they agreed, Alex paused, considering Victor's strategy. Silence could imply assent or dissent, depending on the observer. Jordan's face darkened. "If you disagree, just say it," they snapped. "Your silence is starting to feel like manipulation." The words were a dagger, sharp and precise. Alex realized too late that silence, while powerful, could also sow seeds of doubt. The final blow came during the project's review. Management, impressed with the outcome, seemed poised to credit Alex for their leadership. Jordan, however, interrupted. "Actually, much of this was my initiative." The room grew tense. Alex could have countered, but they didn't. Victor's teachings warred with their instincts. Instead, they let the moment pass, their silence an invisible line drawn between ally and rival. That evening, Victor's voice echoed in Alex's mind. "Silence is not just a tool, it's a weapon. But weapons, when mishandled, often strike the wielder." The alliance was broken, and Alex was left with a bitter truth. Silence could forge connections, but it could just as easily destroy them. The moral dilemma. The email arrived late at night, its subject line sharp and urgent: "Exclusive opportunity, confidential." Alex clicked, their heart quickening as they scanned the message. It was an invitation to lead a major initiative, a project that could redefine their career trajectory. The catch. The role was being considered for another candidate as well, Jordan. The offer came with a subtle implication. Management wanted someone decisive, someone willing to go the extra mile to secure the deal. Alex knew what that meant. This wasn't just about qualifications. It was about proving they had the edge to win, whatever the cost. The dilemma churned in Alex's mind like a storm. A younger version of themselves would have approached Jordan directly, seeking collaboration or fairness. But the lessons from Victor's notebook loomed larger now. One page, in particular, stood out. "Power is not taken, it is claimed. Morality is a luxury reserved for the powerless." The next day, Alex made their move. Armed with subtle but calculated insights, they crafted an email to management, carefully positioning themselves as the more strategic choice. They referenced past successes, some shared with Jordan but framed as their own, and highlighted moments of independent initiative that set them apart. The tone was persuasive but laced with an underlying edge, leaving management to infer that Jordan's leadership might lack the decisiveness needed for this role. When the announcement came, Alex was chosen. The congratulations poured in, the victory heady and exhilarating. But beneath the surface, there was a hollowness. Jordan's reaction wasn't anger, it was silence, a mirror of Alex's own weapon turned against them. Later, in a quiet hallway, Jordan confronted Alex with a look of resignation. "I underestimated you," they said. "Guess I won't make that mistake again." The words weren't shouted, but they carried a weight that lingered long after Jordan walked away. Alex had crossed the line, and while the immediate gain was undeniable, the consequences were already taking root. That evening, Victor called. "Congratulations," he said, though his tone was devoid of warmth. "You've learned the art of power. But let me ask you this, did you feel stronger or weaker when you sent that email?" Alex didn't answer. The silence was telling. The victory was theirs, but it came with a shadow, a question they couldn't yet face. What had they truly gained, and what had they lost in the process? The dark side of silence. The betrayal came like a thunderclap, sudden, disorienting, and impossible to ignore. It began with whispers that reached Alex's ears during a routine meeting. A colleague leaned in, their tone hushed but urgent. "You might want to check the proposal Jordan submitted for the new project. It looks familiar." Alex's heart sank as they pulled up the document on their laptop. There it was, an eerily similar strategy to one Alex had shared privately during their brief alliance with Jordan. The precision of the plan, the language, even the diagrams, it was unmistakably Alex's work. Fury churned within them, but it was tempered by something colder, a realization. Jordan had weaponized silence against them, biding their time until the right moment to strike. Confronting Jordan seemed inevitable, but when Alex found them in the break room, the encounter didn't go as planned. Jordan was calm, almost smug. "It's not theft if you don't claim ownership," they said, sipping their coffee with maddening ease. "You taught me that, remember." Silence leaves room for interpretation. The words cut deeper than any accusation. Jordan hadn't just betrayed Alex, they'd learned from them, adapting Alex's tactics and wielding them with precision. Alex turned to Victor, recounting the betrayal with frustration and a hint of desperation. But Victor's response was far from sympathetic. "Good," he said, his tone as sharp as his gaze. "You finally met someone who understands the game. Now you'll learn its true stakes." "What stakes?" Alex shot back, their voice laced with bitterness. Victor leaned forward, his expression unyielding. "Silence reveals as much as it conceals. You think you've mastered it, but silence doesn't just protect your thoughts. It invites others to fill the gaps. Jordan didn't betray you. You handed them the tools to do it." The words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. Alex had spent so much time wielding silence as a weapon that they hadn't considered how vulnerable it left them to those who could wield it better. That night, Alex sat alone in their apartment, the city's noise a distant hum outside the window. The betrayal wasn't just a personal affront, it was a reflection of the path they'd chosen. Silence, once an ally, now felt like a double-edged sword, its cuts just as likely to harm Alex as their opponents. Victor's final warning echoed in their mind. In this game, there's always someone more skilled. The question is, what will you do when they outplay you? The price of power. Alex had always envisioned power as a triumph, a culmination of effort and skill, that would finally bring clarity and control. But now, standing in the ruins of their personal and professional relationships, power felt more like a curse. At work, whispers about Alex's cutthroat tactics grew louder. Colleagues avoided eye contact in meetings, their laughter turning stiff in Alex's presence. Even casual conversations felt calculated, like everyone was measuring their words. Jordan's betrayal had shifted the atmosphere. The respect Alex once commanded now felt like fear, and with it came isolation. Outside the office, things were no better. A close friend, someone who had always been a grounding presence, stopped replying to messages. When Alex finally called, the conversation was curt. "I don't know who you've become," they said before hanging up. Desperate for clarity, Alex turned to Victor, seeking solace or guidance. But Victor's demeanor had shifted too. The man who once seemed like a mentor now felt distant, almost cold. "You look surprised," Victor remarked when Alex voiced their frustrations. "Did you think power wouldn't demand sacrifices?" "I didn't think I'd lose everything," Alex replied, their voice raw. Victor offered a faint, enigmatic smile. "Lose or shed?" He leaned back in his chair. "You've been so focused on winning that you haven't asked yourself what it's for. Tell me, do you feel free?" The question hit like a blow, and Alex had no answer. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. It was only later, piecing together small clues from past conversations, that Alex began to suspect the unthinkable. Victor might have orchestrated this spiral. His cryptic encouragements, the lessons that seemed to push Alex further into isolation, it was too calculated to be coincidence. Alex confronted Victor in a burst of anger, their voice breaking through the careful silence they had learned to maintain. "Did you plan this? Did you set me up to fail?" Victor's expression was unreadable. "I gave you tools," he said calmly. "How you used them was your choice. But tell me, what have you learned?" The response was maddeningly evasive, but it left Alex with a chilling realization. This wasn't just mentorship, it was an experiment. Victor had used Alex to prove a point. Power is only as strong as the foundation it rests on. And without trust, without connection, it collapses. That night, Alex stared out at the city skyline, the lights twinkling in indifferent brilliance. The cost of power had been greater than they ever imagined, and the person they had become felt like a stranger. But amidst the despair, a question lingered. Was this truly a loss, or the start of something new? The final revelation. The cracks in Alex's world had grown into chasms, swallowing every certainty they once held. Desperate for answers, they returned to Victor's apartment one rainy evening, the weight of disillusionment pressing heavy on their chest. Victor greeted Alex with the same calm demeanor, but there was a shadow in his eyes, a flicker of vulnerability rarely seen. Without preamble, Victor led Alex to a dusty chest tucked beneath an ancient bookshelf. With deliberate care, he opened it to reveal a collection of faded letters, worn photographs, and a leather-bound diary, his personal archive. "I haven't shared this with anyone before," Victor said quietly. As Alex sifted through the fragile pages, a story unfolded, not one of triumph, but of sacrifice. Victor had risen through ruthless silence and calculated moves, yes, but the cost had been devastating. Estranged family, broken friendships, and a solitude so profound it was almost palpable in the room. One letter stood out, a farewell to a loved one, written in trembling script. Victor had chosen power over personal connection, a choice that haunted him every day. "You asked what power costs," Victor said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is the price I paid, and the price you're now paying." The room seemed to close in as Alex confronted a truth far heavier than any lesson from the notebook. Silence doesn't just shield you from others, It reveals who you truly are. For years, Alex had wielded silence like armor, a weapon to control, to manipulate, to win. But beneath that armor was a reflection of fears, insecurities, and the isolation that power demands. Victor's gaze met Alex's. Winning isn't just about silencing others. Sometimes, it's about facing the silence within yourself. The revelation shook Alex to their core. They realized that mastering silence was not merely a strategy for success, it was an invitation to confront their own truth, no matter how uncomfortable. As the rain tapped softly against the window, the mentor and mentee sat in silence, this time, a silence filled not with schemes, but with understanding. Alex knew the path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The game of power had changed forever. The shocking finale. The city lights flickered through the rain-streaked window as Alex sat alone in their apartment, the weight of everything pressing down like a suffocating fog. Every lesson, every betrayal, every hard-won victory led to this moment, a crossroads where the path forward was as clear as it was terrifying. On one side lay the Machiavellian path, power, influence, and the intoxicating allure of control, but it was a road littered with shadows, broken alliances, fractured trust, and an ever-growing loneliness that whispered warnings in the quietest moments. On the other side was the unknown, a possibility of redemption, authenticity, and connection, but one fraught with uncertainty and the risk of losing everything Alex had fought so hard to gain. As the phone buzzed with messages from former allies and rivals alike, Alex's gaze landed on Victor's leather-bound notebook resting on the table. The final page held a single line, handwritten in bold. "What price are you willing to pay to win?" The question echoed through the room, reverberating deep within Alex's soul. Their fingers hovered over the phone, hesitating between sending a message to seal their assent, or deleting every contact to start anew. The silence that followed was heavier than any words could be, an invitation to look inward and decide what winning truly meant. In that charged stillness, the story doesn't end with a clear victory or defeat. Instead, it leaves the audience with a haunting choice. In a world obsessed with power and noise, will you shout louder, or will you dare to shut up and win? The screen fades to black, leaving the question lingering, challenging every viewer to confront their own definition of success and the cost they're willing to pay.